Hello and welcome to CNBC Africa's special of the BRICS Summit 2015. I'm Thomas Marie, coming to you from what's supposed to be a summer's day here in the small town of Ufa, east of Moscow. Behind me you can see the Congress Hall where leaders from all 5 nations gathered to hash out details regarding the new development bank. South Africa so far contributed $5 billion to the bank, and we spoke with members of the BRICS Business Council to find out the key projects that they are hoping to be funded. The BRICS Business Councils gathered to discuss ways to strengthen business and investment opportunities and implement large joint projects between the BRICS countries, with trade between the 5 members reaching $291 billion in 2014. At the end of the meeting, the heads of the National Business Councils signed a declaration on investment cooperation, which will be presented to the heads of state. Brian Molefe, interim CEO of Eskom and chair of the BRICS Business Council for South Africa, gave us some insight into some of the key points highlighted in the declaration.
Well, the key issues are that the BRICS countries are open for business. Russia has given us a list of projects that they're inviting partners to come and work with. We as South Africa will be providing a list of projects as well, mainly from the PIDA projects, the North-South Corridor, as well as the projects from the NDP that we would like partners on. There has been a lot of private sector interaction about the specific projects that we're involved in as on a bilateral basis. Quite a number of companies are already doing business in the BRICS countries and have taken the opportunity to come and strengthen their relations in Russia and with other business people from the BRICS countries.
In strengthening those relations with the other BRICS countries, we understand there's a hope to establish a single trade portal, but this may be difficult for South Africa to commit to. Also issues around protecting intellectual property coming from South Africa. Any points you want to make regarding these 2 aspects?
Well, the portal, the BRICS business portal, has been established. It is in existence. What we have said about intellectual property is that we will respect the laws of each of the countries with respect to intellectual property rights. And so I do not see that as a problem. We will contribute to the portal. The portal is a place where people exchange information about business opportunities in each of the BRICS countries.
In terms of the agreement that was in a declaration that was signed today by all the representatives from the BRICS countries, any issues from South Africa's side? You mentioned there were concerns regarding the international investment obligations. What can you share with us?
Well, the investment principles talk about adhering to international obligations as far as investments are concerned. The issue that we had with that, but it is not a deal-breaking issue. The issue that we had with that is that we may not be aware of other countries' international obligations, and in fact we may not always agree on international obligations or on international agreements that are being reached, especially future international obligations. So it is we found it a little difficult to proceed to agree on international obligations. But the document that is being signed, which is the investment principles, it's in fact not an agreement, it's just a declaration of broad principles. And so that was not a deal breaker. We have proceeded to sign the document.
One of the key sectors South Africa is looking to promote is manufacturing. Stavros Nicolaou, senior executive at Aspen Pharmacare and member of the BRICS Business Council, headed the country's manufacturing working group to identify growth markets.
I think there are manufacturing opportunities that have been identified. I take the sector that I come from, which is pharmaceuticals. So Aspen has been able to successfully invest in all 5 of the BRICS countries, and we've recently set up operations here in Russia, employ around 200 people here in Russia, and we've been able to start targeting what is a niche therapeutic area called thrombolytics or anticoagulant agents. These are injectable anticoagulants used very frequently in surgery. So if you go for hip surgery or knee surgery, above the age of 40, it's an absolute requirement that you take one of our thrombolytic agents. So those are the type of niche opportunities that we look for. Thrombolytics globally are valued at around $9.5 billion. It's a global value. And if you're able to get a sizable market share within the BRICS segment, you'll go a long way to tapping into that $9 billion or $9.5 billion market.
In terms of tapping into markets in other BRICS countries, I mean, South Africa has the lowest forms in terms of the non-tariff barriers for trade coming into the country. How has it been received in other countries? Has it been reciprocal? Are we seeing other countries open up trade to South Africa?
I think you're correct. We probably have the most open economy within the 5 BRICS countries. Very sort of early days to say to what degree are we starting to harmonize some of the openness in trade. What is encouraging for me, though, is we've been able to raise some of the non-tariff barriers within the working manufacturing group, and also more importantly, we had the establishment last month of a 7th working group, which is the working group called deregulation, which will specifically look at regulatory burden, regulatory constraints, administrative burden. It's a bit early to say, but I'm certainly encouraged that that working group has been established, and we'll certainly be raising our issues.
South Africa's infrastructure proposals, what can you tell us about that?
I think that, we as a country are due to spend around 360 billion rand over the next 5 years, and that involves Eskom, Transnet and the likes thereof. So a lot of the utility companies are getting involved in quite big infrastructure programs. We've collaborated with the Chinese, with the Russians, as you know. I mean, Transnet has done a deal with the Chinese. So I think those are the type of deals that have been done and will continue to be done as we move forward in the next 5 years.
I caught up with Jose Rubens de la Rosa, Chief Executive Officer at Marco Polo SA and the Chair of the BRICS Business Council for Brazil, and we discussed the key concerns regarding trade and investment between the BRICS group.
We are discussing, it's a complex question. We are discussing inside that in the business we can do 2 ways. One, exporting things, the easiest way, but then we are somehow not creating jobs in the recipient of our goods. So the second way is to internationalize, like we are doing in South Africa. We have an investment of my company in South Africa, and then we are making our buses there, but the buses being done there in the country. So using local people, local experience, local raw materials, so making the development there. This is the way I see in the future, the best way to every country, trying to find the complementarities, trying to find the real expertise, and then based on expertise, then you manufacture it locally when the country allows that in terms of having volume to support.
An example of collaboration between businesses within the BRICS group is a partnership between South Africa's Bell Equipment and Russian manufacturer Nefaz.
What we're doing is, machinery like this is fairly bulky and expensive to ship around the world, and we're hoping to be able to take some cost out of the product with this joint venture with the Nefaz company, and we're looking to try and get a little bigger slice of the action in this country.
Can you give us a sense of the value of the trade that happens between Bell and its Russian entity? How important is this to the company?
It's not a very big part of our business at the moment. I think, like all of the commodity-driven economies, Russia's in fairly bad shape at the moment, as is the South African domestic mining sector, and so at peak, I guess it would contribute about 5 or 6% of our business in a year.
Which are the key growth markets that Bell are looking to enter, and any opportunities within the other BRICS countries?
Yes, I think the market for this kind of product in China and India is relatively small. They use a lot of small, lightweight construction machines, and it's not very well matured, the market for this particular kind of product. Brazil is very interesting for us. It's got potential going forward, and that's an area that we are opening up some opportunities as we speak. And across South America, we're looking at a number of new areas where we're appointing dealers initially to distribute the product, and So we're looking for some growth from South America when it recovers again. This is also in fairly, if you look at the global markets, it really is only Europe and the US that are growth markets at this stage for this kind of machinery.
Seems that there are very difficult global market conditions that PAL is operating in. In terms of since BRICS has been established, has that seen an improvement in PAL's operations across the different markets that it operates in, especially in the BRICS countries?
No, not really, because I don't think the BRICS has really become effective in terms of the intent of bringing down the barriers and that sort of thing. There's a lot of talk happening, and I think there's a lot of good intentions there, and if it happens, certainly there's huge opportunity for business in each one of the 5 countries to grow.
Those trade barriers that you mentioned, I mean, any key issues that you want to highlight with regards to those barriers that exist and holding back trade?
Yeah, obviously there's things like tariff barriers. We can deal with most of the others, the standards and that sort of thing. We meet global standards in terms of the products that we produce. So, those are not too much of a problem. But for some other companies, it may well be a problem.
Going forward, what are your key hopes regarding events such as the BRICS Summit here, that it's not just all talk, that we do see some concrete implementation for some programs to benefit South African business?
Yeah, I think clearly it's the intentions are good, and there's a lot of commitment to bringing about the changes that will facilitate greater business cooperation across the 5 BRICS countries. And so yeah, I think that we're kind of underway. We got past the talking bit, and we're into the action of actually producing something here jointly with our Russian counterpart.
Intellectual property rights are an important issue among BRICS nations, where members are looking to protect their local industries and avoid having their technology replicated and distributed, which will essentially cut out benefits to the exporting country.
Well, I think that all the members of BRICS do have intellectual property laws, but we haven't defined what our cooperation in this particular area will entail at this point. We've decided that we've got a number of challenges, and those challenges are things like when we look at the issue which we are also looking at very, very seriously, whether or not we register patents without substantive examination of those. I mean, that's the issue that's confronting us. We are faced, not particularly among BRICS countries, but we are faced with a whole lot of patents which are registered routinely because we don't have the capacity to examine them, which are basically evergreen patents, very, very little change, and it's the same old thing that gets registered again for another 20 years. And so, among other things, we look at how we, all of us, trying to confront that challenge. Things like indigenous knowledge, which is of importance to all of us. Then I think some of the flexibilities that are arising in international treaties, those are some of the areas that we will be looking at together and exchanging views on best practice among ourselves.
In terms of the key sectors that South Africa is going to be promoting to enhance beneficiation in the country and to promote import and export primarily, what are the key sectors that we're going to be looking to enhance?
Well, I mean, there's a number. We've got a number of drivers of value addition and manufacturing. They range from capital equipment like this, which our own infrastructure program, the infrastructure program on the African continent, can support industrialization in the areas of capital goods. There's also obviously the green economy. There's innovation-driven industrialization, which we're talking about as well. I mean, there's quite a lot of innovation that's going on. I mean, a company like Bell has started off by making small equipment for the sugar cane fields in KwaZulu-Natal, and now has evolved into a major multinational of yellow fleet equipment. And then we've also got the regional integration efforts that we're engaged in. But as far as BRICS is concerned, I think we're looking, and this has been our message consistently, we're looking to promote trade and investment where we are complementary. And all of us are are industrializing or reindustrializing. And the real challenge, I think, is to find those areas where we can work together, complement each other, and support the entry of each other's products based on some kind of partnership proposition that is a mutual benefit to all of us. And that's what we're doing. And I think that this particular project here is a good example of that.
It's time now for a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more information regarding the 7th BRICS Summit here in Ufa, Russia. Welcome back to CNBC Africa's special of the BRICS Summit here in Ufa. The three-day event saw business and political leaders gather from all the member states to discuss key issues ranging from the formation of the Development Bank to reducing trade barriers and instability in global markets, which is impacting energy and commodity prices. Brian Molefe, once again, thanks for taking the time.
Yes.
Can we outline South Africa's proposals that were made to the heads of state today?
Well, we did not have South Africa our own position, but we presented as the BRICS Business Council, which is a business council of all the BRICS countries, a proposal to the heads of state, which is our annual report from the previous year, as well as the investment principles that we have signed as the BRICS Business Council. So those were the two main documents that were presented, and inside the annual report you will find proposals on how to facilitate investment going forward, but also reporting on the work that we did in the previous year.
The leaders of the 5 BRICS nations came together to discuss how they could further integrate their economies.
We congratulate our chairperson on the successful completion and our adoption of the strategy for BRICS economic partnership, which will provide a platform for further intensifying our economic cooperation in all identified priority sectors. South Africa is eagerly looking forward to working together with our fellow BRICS countries to implement the strategy for the benefit of our people. We also appreciate the recent meetings that our chairperson organized and further encourage our parliamentarians, academics, business people, members of our civil societies, and youth to continue strengthening their ties and exchanges and acknowledge their contributions. This is indeed a historic year where our intergovernmental agreements on the new Development Bank and contingent reserve arrangement entered into force. We wish to assure our partners, as well as the new president of the bank, Mr. K.V. Kamath, and his fellow vice presidents, including our own Mr. Leslie Masodorp, of our unwavering support for this endeavor. We also welcome the appointment of the non-executive directors, including our own Mr. Tito Mboweni. Since we joined the BRICS in Sanya, our trade has expanded exponentially, and we witnessed impressive growth indicative of the continuous integration of our economies. Both South Africa and the African continent have benefited from our economic cooperation with our BRICS partners. South Africa's total trade with BRICS in 2011 was 268 billion rand and has since grown to 382 billion rand in 2014, an increase of 70%. BRICS total trade with Africa doubled since 2007 to 340 billion US dollars in 2012 and is projected to reach 500 billion US dollars by 2015.
One of the key sectors highlighted for investment by the BRICS Development Bank is energy. And given the power crisis in South Africa, I spoke to Chairman of the BRICS Business Council and CEO of Eskom, Brian Molefe, on his views on the key projects that are needing to be funded.
The projects that we will be looking at for the development project, for the development bank to finance will be the projects from the list of the PIDA projects, as well as the North-South Corridor projects. We will still have to go through a process of prioritizing those projects and deciding which ones we will support for presentation to the Development Bank, and those will be projects that will have maximum impact on the facilitation of business, as well as the projects in the NDP, National Development Plan, and the SIPs, strategic investment projects that have been identified by Cabinet in the process that has been led by the President. But most importantly, we will also be looking at business-to-business projects, which is projects where businesses want to invest in either the BRICS countries or where we are attracting investment to South Africa.
In terms of attracting investment to South Africa, and a key area I'm sure of concern to you is the current energy situation in the country. Any discussions regarding how South Africa is going to increase its energy capacity?
No, we did not discuss South Africa's energy issues at the moment, but of course the energy projects in the future are projects that will be considered by the BRICS Development Bank.
In terms of how the BRICS Development Bank is going to finance certain projects, how is that going to be carried out? What's going to be prioritized?
Well, the governors of the bank will have to sit. I'm sure there will be an investment committee and there will be investment guidelines from the bank.
By the second quarter of 2015, the South African government will start the procurement process for the $100 billion nuclear build program, though it is unclear how the country will afford it. 7 nations have put forward their bid for the project, including China and Russia from the BRICS group. I caught up with Zizamele Mbambo, the Deputy Director General for Nuclear Energy, to discuss the contentious issues surrounding this development.
The South African government has taken a decision to expand the nuclear power in a coordinated manner. So in terms of our preparations, government has approved the Integrated Resource Plan for 2010 to 2030, which is a 20-year electricity plan for the country to roll out different energy technologies to generate electricity. And in terms of that Integrated Resource Plan, it stipulates that nuclear will contribute 9.6 gigawatts to the energy mix.
So that's very significant, but the nuclear program has been met with quite a bit of criticism, especially in terms of how it's going to be funded going forward. Do you see this as an issue?
As a government, we've done detailed cost studies, and we've also done a funding and a financing model for the nuclear build program. And in addition, we have done a detailed economic impact of the localization of the nuclear build program. And all this detailed work that we have done has indicated to government that the rollout of the nuclear build program will have a positive impact into our economy. It will generate revenue for its 80 years of lifespan, and it will put in trillions of rand into the South African economy. And so in terms of the issue of cost, as government, we are not concerned about the issue that you are raising of cost, because we have done our detailed work. which has enabled government to have sufficient information to proceed with the nuclear build program.
In terms of the cost analysis, can you provide details with regards to what will be the overall cost of the program, and any thoughts in terms of where this money is going to be coming from?
Yeah, it's important to understand that when you're dealing with a nuclear build program, it's a strategic project. What you'll actually do is that you will do your detailed work. That is what we have done as government. We've done our detailed work in terms of understanding what is the cost of the program and what is the funding model. However, it is too early to start divulging this information. We are using this to provide government with sufficient benchmark information which we will use when we are engaging with the nuclear vendor countries during the procurement process. So we can't at this stage start talking about prices when we have not started the procurement process. We will only start talking about the actual definitive prices once we have started the procurement process and we have received the bids from the nuclear bidders with their actual prices, and then we will be able to start talking about prices.
As the BRICS Summit comes to a close here in Ufa, Russia, we've seen the signing of various memorandums to enhance trade relations and investment between the member states. But we'll have to keep a close eye to ensure that these actually materialize to benefit the economies. The first regional office for the new development bank will be hosted in Johannesburg, where the key objective is to promote investment not only to South Africa, but the entire continent. From me, Thomas Marie, until next time, take care.